So this week, we're going to be looking at the three other of those logics that were presented in the article on sustainability. These three, eco-medical, eco-cultural, and eco-social, have a kind of relationship to each other, I think. And in this particular talk right here, we're going to be looking at eco-medical. And then in the next talk, we'll look at eco-cultural and eco-social. So in this talk, we're going to be focusing primarily on what the article we read referred to as eco-medical. And again, sometimes this is a hard sell to students who read this article. Wait, medical? Yeah, that's like another discipline. It's healthcare. That's somebody else's problem. Medical, is that really something architects are supposed to deal with? But I think they begin to make a pretty convincing argument in the article. But I think there's a lot more on that topic that, for me, is extraordinarily convincing about the role and the importance of architecture in wellness. Now, you could maybe argue, well, is that really sustainability? Isn't that healthcare? That's something different. Well, a culture cannot be sustainable if they're not healthy. A culture can't be, have longevity and resiliency without being healthy. So yes, creating a healthy culture is very much a part of making a sustainable culture. So there's several aspects of how buildings impact health. And in fact, because we did the medical school, their health learning building here at UT. And in that 3 or 4 years when I was involved in that project, I got totally tight with a lot of docs over there and had many conversations about how does architecture interface with healthcare. And in fact, they asked me to put together a little presentation that I've given several times over there about how health is so much impacted by the physical environment. So I'm a true believer in this eco-medical, and that we do have a big role in determining what the health of a society is. So let's think about 3 or 4 ways that buildings impact health. The first and maybe most obvious is in interior environments. And we're much more conscious these days of indoor air quality than definitely 30 or 40 years ago. It's partly a result of we have a lot of asthma in America these days. The rise of asthma has been kind of exponential, and people have begun to realize that that has to do with the fact that people spend a lot more time inside buildings than they did 30 or 40 years ago, and that the air they're breathing in those buildings is not as sustaining to developing good lung capacity and healthy lung systems. And that's because we have a lot of times very bad air inside buildings. And that comes from a number of things. In the 1970s, there was the first energy crisis, and the response to that was 2 things. One was we need to make our buildings much tighter, have much less air infiltration that is compromising the heating and cooling of that building. So we began to make these really tight envelopes for buildings. And then the other thing is ASHRAE, who sets all the standards for heating and cooling. ASHRAE said, yeah, we don't need to have as many air exchanges. We can just recycle that already heated or cooled air and send it back through the system more instead of bringing in fresh air from outside. So the combination of tighter buildings and fewer air exchanges created in the 1980s and 1990s what people began to call sick building syndrome. And it was such poor indoor air quality that it was aggravating asthma, and it was causing a lot of other respiratory problems as well. So ASHRAE altered its standards, but we have continued to make very tight envelopes for buildings in order to make them more energy efficient. And we've got other things that are aggravating that as well. For one thing, maybe 30 or 40 years ago, if you had carpet in a building, it probably was either wool or mohair or something like that. It probably was not synthetic. But these days, 99% of all carpet is synthetic. So it's made of polymers, and it's chemically produced substance. So there often is off-gassing that comes from that, and it affects the air that's inside the building. And now it's air inside a very tight envelope of the building. There also has been a big rise in the complaints that come from indoor air quality. Headaches, fatigue are often symptoms of a poor indoor air quality. There are many, many chemicals that are in everything we have inside buildings. Those freaking hung acoustic tile ceilings that are everywhere in office buildings all over the country. Most of that has formaldehyde in it. You can get formaldehyde-free ceiling tiles, but they're a little more expensive and they're not common. So that formaldehyde is off-gassing into the environment inside. And it's really everything. It's the carpets, it's the ceiling tiles, it's the fabrics on the furniture, which are generally synthetic now, and so that's polymer-based fabrics. It's adhesives and coatings in material assemblies. It's insulation, it's MDF, it's downcycled materials. All of these often have problems with off-gassing and with chemicals they're releasing into the air. And because the envelope of the building is very tight, it's often polluting the indoor air. So I was actually on a board of a nonprofit called Green Guard for a decade. I was based in Atlanta, and its mission is to certify products for their benefit to indoor air quality. So to make sure that a product is not off-gassing. So a manufacturer of carpet or a manufacturer of ceiling tiles or a manufacturer of furniture can get those tested, and Green Guard will then certify that yes, this is free of that kind of off-gassing. That's the only way architects know what materials to use and what materials not to use. And then I was, after that, I was on the board of Air Quality Sciences, which is actually the testing mechanism. And now that's actually become a part of Underwriters Laboratory. So it's a way of our profession getting a handle on how can we know when something's going to pollute the indoor air environment. But in the process of doing that, the woman who really started Green Guard and started Air Quality Sciences, a woman named Marilyn Black, she's a chemist, and she's on a mission for better indoor air quality. And Marilyn lives in Atlanta, and she was telling me a story about some people who were very wealthy there, and they're very big advocates of sustainability, and they decided to build a model home in terms of just the most sustainable you could make your home. And it was quite a large home. I don't think they got the ecocentric thing, but quite a lavish home. But they had solar collectors, they had, all double pane glass with low E coatings, they got, super duper insulation. They had all of these tricks to make it more sustainable, and a lot of them really, really great ideas. So they decided, because they were kind of a benevolent family, they decided that before they moved into their house, they would open it to the public and let people see all these features and let that be a kind of model for innovation in sustainability. So they did that. Thousands of people came through over a period of a couple of months to see this model example of sustainability. Then the family, they shut down the public visits, and the family moved in. And within a couple of months, the family was getting ill. And they had all these sort of classic symptoms of headaches and fatigue and respiratory problems, caught every cold that came around. And they began to wonder, is this change in our health a result of the new house? So they had Marilyn come out and test the indoor air quality. And the indoor air quality totally sucked. It was terrible because they had made this incredibly tight envelope for the house, and they had not been particularly aware of what kinds of materials they were using, and they were getting terrible off-gassing, and it was making them sick. They moved out of the house. They had to take out a lot of the finishes in the house, replace them with Green Guard certified materials, and eventually fix the problem. But this is the importance. This is how eco-medical works. You can do all these other things, and you can make a building that is actually deleterious to people's health. That was a LEED platinum building. It was like, checked all the boxes, except the one on indoor air quality. And that was disastrous. So this is maybe particularly evident, this indoor air quality issue in office environments. A lot of people, they complain about their office environment. I get so tired working in my office, or I always have a headache at the end of the day. And they're completely unaware of what's causing that, but it may well be indoor air quality. There are other things in those office environments too that often make people less healthy. If you're not near natural light and you're working all of the daylight hours during the day, that can be extremely unhealthy. Your body needs natural light. Natural light is the key factor in producing serotonin in the body. If you don't get natural light, your body produces less serotonin. If you get natural light, it's a source of vitamin D, but it's also very much a stimulus for the production of serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. It basically makes our brains work better. It makes us more attentive. It makes us have more energy. It makes us think better. So we've got all these office environments where somebody goes to work when it's barely light. They work there all during the light days during the winter, and then they go home at night and it's dark, and they basically got no natural light all day long. And if you do that repeatedly over a period of time, your serotonin production goes way down, and you're less smart, you're less productive, you're less attentive, and it's a very big health problem. So again, these are design issues that affect people's health and their well-being. So I think that that's one way of thinking of this issue of eco-medical. But there's another way when you think about how buildings shape lifestyle or shape activities. So generally in any building we do, especially an institutional building these days, we try desperately, if it's a multi-story building, to get people to use the stair instead of the elevator. So we'll put the elevator there, but it's kind of tucked over here. And instead there's a hugely inviting stair that I can easily walk to the second floor, maybe also to the third floor or the fourth floor, or even the fifth floor. The health learning building that we did here for the medical school has a 5-story stair that cascades up the side of the building. The dean's office is on the 5th floor. That dean is proud of the fact that he's never used that elevator. I walk up that stair every day to my office, and he's a healthy, fit kind of guy. It's very, very healthy to take the stairs. Just if you build that into the building, this temptation to live healthy and get exercise, as opposed to a temptation to take the freaking elevator every time and move your fat ass upstairs without any physical exertion, it's less beneficial to your health. So that's on the scale of buildings, but also on the scale of the city. Are we building lifestyles that are just inherently unhealthy? And are we building them into physical environments? So in a normal kind of suburban environment where I go from my air-conditioned home to get it right in my car, 5 steps away from the kitchen. I get in that car, I drive to my office, I park in my executive parking space, 5 steps from the front door. I walk in, go to my office, I sit on my ass all day staring at a computer screen. I walk back out, get in that car, drive home, and I've got 15 steps all day long. It's ridiculous how little exercise you're getting in your everyday life in that kind of city, a city built around suburban houses, office parks, driving everywhere. Now, even if you're in a city that has, say, mass transportation, and you walk 3 or 4 blocks to the bus stop, and then you take the bus, and then you walk 3 or 4 blocks from the bus to your office, that's already building into your day a little bit of walking. Sprint, when they built their headquarters in Kansas City, they actually made the parking garage a long way away from the office building. They said, bugger convenience, bugger time efficiency. We want our people walking. It's just healthy to walk. And their insurance company gave them a bonus because that improves the health of your people. If they're just in their everyday life, they're walking, they're moving. So this is a way that the way the physical environment is laid out affects people's lifestyle. Those lifestyles then affect people's health. So I would say there are huge opportunities at many different scales for architecture to be a resource for improving wellness, and in that way being eco-medical, and in that way being more sustainable. Okay, see you next time.